Are these not like double standards? When you meet him, what do you tell him? What do you talk to him about?
When you meet him, what do you tell him? He's afraid of him. He folds his tail, under his legs. He's afraid. He can't say nothing. He's just there to enjoy the camaraderie of having rich folks. Nothing. He says nothing. Let's go back here. Listen to what he says here.
Kidnapping, lawful, honorable minister.
Is abducting and kidnapping lawful, honorable minister? Listen to how he responds.
Minister.
I think you can use that kind of word. What I refer to as kid.
What is he even saying? What does that even mean? I think you can use that kind of word. The question is abduction and kidnapping lawful? Oh, you can use that word. What word?
And in that conversation, that supporter, who is a foreigner based in Europe, was responding to a question by the leader of the National Unity Platform. I don't want to mention the name now, but...
Why? Because you're lying. Mention the name. Because if you're accusing them, you're going to listen to what he's accusing Bobi Wine of doing.
Everybody knows the National Unity Platform, the leading opposition party, and its leader.
But if everybody knows, then why don't you mention the names?
In Uganda today, there are two forces. There are those who are projecting the government of Uganda and the president of Uganda as a kind of irredeemable tyrant.
He is.
People I call regime change fundamentalists. But
regime change fundamental. Now he's starting to pick a few buzzwords. Regime change fundamentalists.
You're watching Mordecai Marissa Political Commentary. Please consider subscribing to help grow Uganda's Voices of Struggle ecosystem. Thank you.
Very glad to be here on Mordecai Marissa TV.
And yes, indeed. Hello. How you doing? My name is Mordecai Marissa, and I'm so glad that you're part of this conversation. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be looking at an interview that was conducted by DW. They were interviewing Uganda's Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Norbert Mao. It was a train wreck, a complete car crash, a meltdown from Norbert Mao. Unbelievable. Doesn't even begin to describe what happened. But that's not the gist of what I'm trying to say. The gist is how disappointed I feel, the heartbreak, that I see a man whom I considered sort of a role model, a man whom I looked up to and say, we have a gentleman who can actually change this country at one time. A man who told us how folks who we trust, very potential folks that we believe can change this country, that the moment they join Museveni, their career go down the rabbit hole, that they've been appointed to dine with the devil himself. He ends up doing the same thing that he warned us about. So when he had this interview with this lady from DW, it was unbelievable to look at a man eating his own puke. Unbelievable. Let's go on and listen to this conversation. I know I usually use Luganda, and most of you now are saying, hey, Mordecai, are you going to change to Luganda? This one is going to be conducted in English. Please allow me, because for reasons that we all know that this interview was conducted in English. Listen.
Hello, Africa, and welcome to this exclusive episode. Joining us today is Uganda's Justice Minister himself, Norbert Mao, who has publicly called for constitutionalism and humane policing. But how much power does he really have to effect change? Is Uganda's leadership listening, or are we witnessing a government turning a blind eye to its own abuses?
I'll start right away telling you that no, the government of Uganda is not listening. He knew what he went into. He just went there because of money. That's it.
We are going to be talking to you about...
And I'm sorry to be biased already. You might... I mean, this is it. And you're going to see it from his responses from all the questions that are going to be posed by this lady, Josey Mahachi.
Thing that's happening in Uganda, a lot of Ugandans are unhappy, allegedly. I mean, we're talking of Ugandans, what we read on social media, on X, on Facebook and everything, especially when it comes to security in your country. You are the Minister of Justice. Maybe if you can just tell us in an overview, in a nutshell, what exactly is happening in Uganda? Why are Ugandans unhappy?
I am assuming that you are talking about the matter of trials of civilians in military courts.
Absolutely. And also abductions, allegations of abductions, kidnappings, opposition figures being arrested, just everything that's been happening that we are reading.
Complete chaos. That's what he was trying to say. Complete chaos in the country. And you're talking to allegedly the minister, purportedly the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. Is just a dummy. You know, a dummy? Like we usually see when we go to places where we shop our clothes. He's just a dummy. He's nothing. He's not a minister. Nothing. He's just occupying a position. But the one who pulls the strings is the one who sits in a guru gentleman called Caleb Akandwanaho, commonly referred to as Salim Saleh or known as Salim Saleh, Museveni's brother.
Everything we read, everything we see in the media, you also are aware that is what is trending in the media space.
And the matter of trial of civilians in the military courts has been a subject of litigation. It started in the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court had decided that the trial of civilians in military courts is...
I increased speed. This is not the normal speed. I just went into my settings on YouTube and increased speed. You might be wondering, there's no point of listening or... No, I increased
constitutional. And there was an appeal to the Supreme Court. We now have a verdict, and the Supreme Court has decided that all cases that are in the military courts should be transferred to the civilian courts. And that is being done. It started with the case of Dr. Kizza Besigye, who is a...
Now, isn't it funny that all along it started with Dr. Kizza Besigye, but you've been there. You are a lawyer. These are things that you should have, put into your sort of negotiation deal. That I'm coming, but I would like to see this coming to an end. Why do we have to wait until Dr. Kizza Besigye is arraigned before the military court martial? It has been unconstitutionally done in the past, and you've been quiet.
Prominent opposition leader, and now that file is with the civilians. I believe that it is a step in the right direction. It shows that the government is complying. Now, on the question of...
You're a shameless charlatan. The government is not complying. Actually, shortly after this decision was made by the Supreme Court, the NRM Museveni summoned the members of parliament from the NRM that have the majority in the in the parliament. And he was trying to convince them, including bribing them to reconsider, to come and debate again what was decided by the Supreme Court. It is extremely wrong and stupid from you that you're lying with a straight face to this lady.
Abductions and kidnaps. It is illegal for anybody to kidnap another citizen.
And what do you do when they're kidnapped? Listen.
It is illegal for anybody to abduct.
I mean, what is he even trying to say? It's like someone telling me that, hey, it is wrong not to drink water. I mean, everyone knows that. What's the new thing what point are you trying to make when you say, it is illegal? Absolutely, everyone knows. But since time immemorial, since the establishment of the Museveni regime in 1986, they've been abducting people and killing them and torturing them. So what is he trying to say? This is a complete meltdown. He's used to some sort of softball interviews from some of our folks in Uganda. And now it goes into a complete word salad.
Another. As the public face of justice, I condemn that. I do not in any way condone it. And I think that if you are enforcing the law, you should still act within the law.
Uganda has been...
Condemning that is not enough. We've all condemned. But you as a minister, these are folks that you should actually be questioning. Who is doing this? This is why we see you resigning. This is why we see you making statements that really make sense, but only coming in camera and saying, I condemn this. It is playing on the minds of the people, gentlemen.
Continues to be on record for gross human rights violation over the years, like arbitrary arrests that we were just talking about and torture. The situation seems to be worsening. Why has this trend persisted?
I do believe that it is important to understand the context of everything that is going on in Uganda.
Tell us the context.
When I became Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, I had meetings with the diplomats. And I told them of what the security agencies in Uganda know. In the run to the elections of 2021, the Ugandan security agencies picked up a conversation between non-citizens, basically a supporter of the leading opposition party. And in that conversation, that supporter, who is a foreigner based in Europe, was responding to a question by the leader of the National Unity Platform. I don't want to mention the name now, but
Why? Because you're lying. Mention the name. Because if you're accusing them, you're going to listen to what he's accusing Bobby Wine of doing.
everybody knows the National Unity Platform, the leading opposition party, and its leader.
But if everybody knows, then why don't you mention the names? Sounds fishy. If everybody knows, then why won't you mention?
And the leader of the National Unity Platform was asking why the United Nations does not invoke the responsibility to protect. And then this friend of his based in Europe told him that for that to happen, there should be massive bloodshed.
Isn't it funny that usually when folks are trying to come up with trumped-up charges against their political opponents, they usually run to one talking point: treason. Dr. Shiza Besigye, treason. Olivia Rutaya, treason. Mahachi Nsanya, treason. Bobby Wine, treason. It's like they only have one charge that they believe that Ugandan citizens are willing to accept. So now he's trying to tell us that, this gentleman was having a conversation with Bobby Wine, why he told Bobby Wine that if you want to see bloodshed in Uganda, please rally masses of people to get on streets and protest. And if they are killed by the government, then we're going to come in and help you. This is child play, lies.
And then he offered his advice saying, if you can mobilize thousands and thousands of people to come to the streets and protest, and the government can be provoked to kill at least 500 people, then the international community can invoke the responsibility to protect.
Now, this is a complete lie, because again, people came on streets and they were non-provoked. There wasn't sort of Bobby Wine actually rallying them to come on streets. Bobby Wine was arrested. People came to streets. They protested. They were killed. We didn't see the government. This gentleman he's trying to refer to, the nebulous someone in Europe, didn't come to save us from the regime and the tyranny of Mr. Museveni. This is Norbert Mao lying with his straight face. Shamelessness.
Now, if you are the government and you hear such a conversation, obviously you can't just sit on your hands. You've got to act.
Act by abducting and torturing, or act by reacting lawfully, Honorable?
Good question. How do you act? By abducting these folks who are alleged to be behind these nefarious plans, or by trying to open the books of law and asking, what do I do here?
Minister,
I can tell you that in that situation, the government of Uganda had to stop anything that would lead to provocation and killings.
By killing.
It's not my duty to say.
Exactly. Ask how.
How did the government stop it?
The security forces decided to arrest.
This gentleman, Norbert Mao, is really, really shameless. Like, he knew what happened. People were abducted. People were tortured. People were killed. These are documented. BBC has a full documentary of how innocent people were killed. But he's here lying to this lady.
The ringleaders who were planning that mass uprising. And many of them were arrested.
But who are these people? Why don't you tell us? Is it the Mahachi Nsanya? Is it the Olivia Rutaya? Because in the end, the Olivia Rutaya who were charged with treason were, just forgiven by the president. And the Mahachi Nsanya, who were coerced into admitting that they were planning against the country, ended up exposing the plans of the regime, of how they were able to convince them to come into camera and admit that they were planning against the government, only for the government to fail to meet their requests. And they were like, hey, this was just a game. And Norbert Mao is here pretending or trying to paint a picture that, the government now followed the legal procedure of how to, arrest and prosecute people.
Many of them were charged.
Jesus.
And unfortunately, some of the cases were mishandled, and the government has admitted.
Isn't it funny that he doesn't? How were they mishandled? I'm trying to know. What do you mean by mishandling? You know, it's funny how he's very calculative and very deliberate on choosing the language and the words he uses. Oh, some cases were mishandled. Let me try to think of how they were mishandled. Were some people sodomized, sent to prison, others killed, tortured, others we may never know where they are. And these people are not planning against their country, they are protesting the arrest of Bobby Wine, the illegal detention of Bobby Wine.
Some of those mistakes. But my point is that there is a context to what happened.
Your context is complete hogwash. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying. I don't want to be tough on him. I don't want to sound like I'm rude and being mean. But this is complete hogwash.
And it is up to you to judge. But it's also important for the Uganda government to explain what led to that. I don't think there's any government that just wakes up and starts abducting people. Or
Yes, there is. There's a government that just wakes up and starts abducting people. That government is led by Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. A mere protesting of some of these provisions and plans and ideas of Mr. Museveni. They abduct you. A mere saying, oh, Museveni is stupid. On your using your phone, they abduct you. A mere opposing this funny guy, this Mawanda. There's a lady in Western Uganda. She was arrested just because she criticized the theft of Mawanda, of the Mohozi's political group. It is Uganda where journalists are being beaten. They're being tortured. Their gadgets or equipment confiscated. It is in Uganda where they are being forced to delete the footage they've captured when they're being, when these folks in our security organs are killing, torturing, and breaking the law. It is Uganda.
People. I also do not think that every arrest is a kidnap.
But he's abducting.
And no one said that every arrest is a kidnap. But when it comes to politics, it looks like majority of the arrests are abductions.
He's abducting and kidnapping lawful, Honorable Minister.
I think you can use that kind of word. What I refer to.
What do you mean? What is he even saying? The question is simple and plain. Is abduction and kidnap legal? Oh, I think, let's go back here. Listen to what he says here.
Kidnapping lawful, Honorable Minister.
Is abducting and kidnapping lawful? Honorable Minister, listen to how he responds.
Minister.
I think you can use that kind of word. What I refer to as kidnapping.
What is he even saying? What does that even mean? I think you can use that kind of word. The question is abduction and kidnapping lawful? Oh, you can use that word. What word?
Kidnapping is when those who have not identified themselves, they come to your house and take you away. That has happened and it is highly regrettable. But the incidents that I'm talking about were carried out lawfully by security agencies. In some cases, there were mistakes that were made. And
I don't know. What do you mean by mistakes? Please, would you explain the mistakes? Like breaking people's legs and using pliers to pull off their skins and breaking into their doors and sodomizing kids and killing them, torturing them. These are the mistakes. He talks about these horrible, evil stuff they did as though they were just a slap on the wrist.
Government has admitted those mistakes on the floor of parliament. So I would like us to distinguish between the abduction by overzealous security agencies who are politically motivated.
These are not overzealous security officers or whatever. This is a feature. It's not a bug in the NRM modus operandi. This is how the NRM operates. It is not something that that's new. It has been normalized. This is the way they do it.
But I also like us to understand the context.
There's no context.
Security measures that were taken by the Uganda government in order to stop a mass uprising based on incitement by those whose only focus is regime change in Uganda. So
what have you done about
regime change? So you admit that it's a regime.
Overzealous security officials. What have you done about them?
Oh, chef's kiss. Let's listen to what he says.
Number one, you do remember that in the first military operation where the police and the army came to the streets and tried to stop demonstrations, and in that intervention, many people were killed. The official record talks about 60. In that case, the Deputy Inspector General of Police was dismissed. That one.
But by you? What have you done? Not the actions of Museveni. Of course, Museveni sees everything and takes his own decisions. But what have you done?
The disciplinary measure. In other cases, other police officers were also subjected to disciplinary measures. Many of the family members were also compensated. In one case, the president of Uganda went to one of the families.
This is regrettable. I can't believe he watches him. I don't know whether he is able to watch himself after this interview. It is
somebody who was killed innocently and made a public apology and also compensated them. My main point is not to defend lawlessness by Ugandan security forces. My main point is that those who talk about Uganda should not overlook the context in which everything has been happening.
There's no context here. The real context is Museveni's mission and his minions, sycophants, lapdogs, lackeys like you, is to consolidate power by all means possible. The context here is Muhoozi has promised to abduct, to kill, to torture his political opponents and by extension, his daddy's political opponents. That is the context. There's no other context. Of recent, he talked about the abduction and beating up of folks from the NUP who wear the red beret. He's not the one who enforces the law. The legal frameworks under which someone you accuse of doing or committing a crime should be charged or should be handled. There's no context.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned that the president visited recently the family of someone who lost their lives in Uganda. But Minister Mao, you joined government through a political deal with President Museveni, yet he is the same leader being accused of orchestrating these abductions. Does this not amount to double standards, especially when you have also spoken out strongly against abductions, but yet your own government insists these are lawful arrests? How do you justify your position? Why are these injustices escalating under your watch, yet you are the Minister for Justice and
Look at his
Constitutional Affairs?
face.
As Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, my job is to offer the best possible advice to the government of Uganda. Now, it is not fair for...
That's your job, but that's not what you do. You're just there as a dummy. You do nothing. Museveni doesn't listen to nothing. Actually, he came out and said, oh, Mao came to talk about, he was talking about transition. But, that's hogwash, according to his own, I'm not quoting him verbatim, but that's what he says. There's nothing.
Anybody to say the abductions are happening because I'm the Minister of Justice. Obviously, that is...
It's not funny. He's trying to sound funny.
I said the president is the one that is allegedly being accused of orchestrating these abductions. He appointed you as the Minister of Justice, and you are openly coming to say, you know what, this is wrong. I am strongly against these abductions. Mm-hmm. And even here on this platform, you have clearly said you are not happy with this and it's regrettable. Yet
because I can do the same. Mordecai Murisa, a ding-dong on his social media platforms, can say abducting, killing, and torturing of innocent Ugandans is wrong. So what? This is Mordecai. You are the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. Nothing. You're not. You know that.
A minister under President Museveni, who's being allegedly accused for this thing.
Not allegedly. Okay. These are all have been documented.
Are these not like double standards? When you meet him, what do you tell him? What do you talk to him?
When you meet him, what do you tell him? He's afraid of him. He folds his tail, under his legs. He's afraid. He can't say nothing. He's just there to enjoy the camaraderie of having rich folks. Nothing. He says nothing. He says he's a yes man before Museveni. They're afraid of him. He actually addresses him as Musei. There's nothing. He doesn't advise him on anything. He's just there. Museveni was looking for someone from his tribe. He wanted someone whom his people can look at and be like, oh, we are represented. We have someone from our tribe in his government. And then Museveni was looking for someone who has been on his on the opposition doing his dirty work, finding ways of how we can award him. Is the same as you see the folks of Full Figure becoming presidential advisor, Eddie Kenzo, presidential advisor on creatives, or Bobby, what's his name, former Bobby Wine's friend, Butcherman, presidential advisor on the ghetto. Zero. They don't advise him on nothing.
But he himself went and admitted that what was done by some of the security forces was wrong. And
They're
yet
asking
he
you.
is the overall leader of Uganda. I do not think that if something wrong is done by people who are under your supervision, then that means that your position is untenable. It is actually precisely because of that reason that you should step and take responsibility. I think the president took responsibility. The president has been on record
But isn't it even funny that he is not able to listen to himself? We're not questioning whether your position is untenable or not. Now you're coming out to say, oh, I'm condemning this, and the president came out and condemned it. So what? If you allegedly claim, just like if you claim that you lead this country, you should come with solutions. The lady is asking, there's an escalation in abductions, in torturing, and in killing of innocent Ugandans. It doesn't make any sense when you and your boss come out and say, we condemn this. This is wrong. Mordecai can say that. A kid in primary 7 can say that. Any person can say that. This lady's question is, you are the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. What difference have you brought to this department or to this ministry? You're deflecting and gaslighting her and being verbose, but just verbose of gibberish and word salad.
In those acts, personally, I have been a consistent opponent of any breaches of human rights. I sit in that cabinet, and it's my duty to always point out when there is wrongdoing.
And what happens after pointing out? It's not about pointing out, oh, this one has been killed. Oh, this one has been tortured. Oh, this one, they've disappeared. We don't know where they are. They've disappeared. What happens after that? It's not about flapping my gums. That's my job, Mordecai. I'm on this internet. This is what I use. This is my microphone. To be a drum major, to show you, to open eyes of people, to point at these things. You are a minister. You have a position of power. You have influence. You have people who work under you. Your role is to implement some of these strategies, some of these ideologies, some of these policies so that things can change. But if you're occupying an office and the abduction, the torturing and killing of innocent Ugandans is just escalating, then you deserve to resign. Don't deflect.
To advise that we make amends. Yesterday, we convened a meeting in Kampala to finally discuss the National Action Plan for Human Rights.
Discussing. How many times have we discussed?
And it is the responsibility of everybody to ensure that there is observance of human rights.
It looks like Norbert Mao's role is to discuss and observe. I came out and I condemned. Yesterday we sat and discussed. Oh, it is okay to observe. Observation, discussing. No, we're asking for actions. The question is, why do we see escalation in abduction, killing, and torturing of innocent Ugandans? Oh, political opponents of Mr. Museveni. Don't tell us about your observations and your discussions.
Now, in Uganda today, there are two forces. There are those who are projecting the government of Uganda and the president of Uganda as a kind of irredeemable tyrant.
He is.
And that there's actually nothing that can be done, that Ugandans can do nothing to improve the situation in the country, and that the only thing that we have to do is to change the president and to change the government.
Norbert Mao. Museveni is an irredeemable tyrant. And you recognize that. And that's what you said before you joined him. He's irredeemable. We're talking about a gentleman who looks at his political opponent after he's been tortured, after he's been, disrespected, unlawfully arrested or abducted. And then the president comes speak to the press and says, "Oh, I saw Bobby Wine, but he was, beaten so good." That's the man you think is redeemable? That's why we advocate for the change of power.
The people I call regime change fundamentalists. But
regime change fundamental. Now he's starting to pick a few buzzwords. Regime change fundamentalists.
Uganda has a different and a very difficult history.
If someone comes out and says that, I think the problem of Uganda is Museveni. He's not being a fundamentalist. He's not a regime change fundamentalist. He'll tell you that, he disrespected the constitution. He veered off from the mission and the ideologies of the NRA and later on NRM. That's not regime change up fundamentalists.
Uganda has had a history of violence and
perpetrated by Museveni. Please add it on. For example, I usually hear folks who say, "Oh, if Museveni leaves power, we might have a war." I usually ask them, if we go back and open the books of history, who started our last war? It was Museveni. After his embarrassing loss in 1980, he launched a war against the governments, then of Obote and Tito Okello Lutwa. So, had he not launched a war, who knows? We would be celebrating over 50 years without a war, or close to 50 years without a war.
Mass murders. That has been our history. Some of us believe that the time has come in Uganda to talk about a better future.
Talk about a better future. This thing is, how many minutes? Let me see. It's a long thing. You're going to have to watch it because it's just embarrassing.
Build a new consensus to have a government which can have a clean break with the past. And that's why some of us are in this government to talk about even difficult subjects like transition. How can Uganda have peaceful change? So we believe in it.
He doesn't even care about your transition. The one you're talking about transition is preparing his neighbor baby, Mhozi Kainerugaba. They don't care about whatever you have, all the ideas. You're just occupying just an office, just a dummy.
Constructive engagement. I believe that my president...
You don't get into constructive engagement with folks who come with a machete, bombs and guns, who are just putting you in a sniper's target.
In the government makes me a force for good. I'm in a position to influence certain things. Let me tell you, without voices like mine, you would not have seen someone like Colonel Kizza Besigye in a civilian court. So my position is important because I'm capable of being like a linesman. I can raise the flag when the line has been crossed. And
hey, I will tell you this, okay? This thing is 34 minutes, you can see here. 34 minutes. It's on a DW YouTube page. Please go on and watch it. It's embarrassing. I can't continue. It's crazy. This is one of the interviews he will live to regret with time. Look at some of the comments. Mao, this interview will haunt your children. Someone who used to speak sense. People are laughing at him. Mao is trying to carry water and fire in the same mouth. Absolutely. His underdog brain transplant at NRM clinic. Has he undergone brain transplant at NRM clinic? For now, Honorable Norbert Mao cannot openly hit the spot of honey. Let's admit that because he would have tampered with the position he holds. See, everyone here, everyone is making fun of him. Everyone is laughing at Norbert Mao. This was a complete burning and crashing. He should be ashamed of himself, but I'm afraid he has no shame whatsoever. His goal is a career politician, driven by careerism. He's always wanted to be in that position. And now, by the fact that he's in that position, he really doesn't care what people say. That's why he's willing to say all those things that he says. Shameless defend Mr. Museveni. There's no way. He talks about observation and discussions and nothing. That's the observation for today. Oh, to use his word. Observation. Today's observation. It is very sad. I don't know. Norbert Mao. I feel very sad for people like him. But hey, as long as he's happy, that's all he wanted. He wanted to be in positions of power, to be seen as Norbert Mao. Congratulations upon you selling your soul. Unbelievable. Well, folks, my name is Mordecai Murisa. I think I've got to let you go. That's the show for today. Until we catch up again, please let me know where you're watching me from. And would you prefer me to have English only videos? English is not an easy language. I have to prepare myself. I have to first open my dictionary and make sure that I remember every single word. Otherwise, I might be laughed at. I'm kidding. Anyways, my name is Mordecai Melissa. Until we catch up again, have yourself a wonderful time.
Did you enjoy what you just watched? I'm going to guess that you did. How about you consider subscribing to Mordecai Marissa YouTube channel? Thank you.